everyone, it's Jessica with Power of Education and Miss Mona Housman from Homelife, and we'll go ahead and get started with just like basically who you are, what Homelife is, what you do at Homelife, and things like that.
Okay, so I'm Mona Housman. I'm a high school counselor for homeschool families in primarily the state of Tennessee, but Homelife Academy is what's called a legal covering or umbrella school for homeschool students in Tennessee, Florida, Colorado, and Alabama. So we have students in all four of those states, but we also have students who just want to keep records with us. So many states, Utah, Arkansas, Mississippi, a number of western states don't require a homeschool family to be registered with a school, a private school like we are. So they use Homelife Academy for just documenting things like the transcript or the diploma, or to get access to high school counselors to try to plan those 4 years of high school. Yeah. And so we also have some international families as well. So we have a broad reach, but for families that you're mainly dealing with West Tennessee, we certainly have a number of those and can help facilitate in public school setting, moving into homeschool world or private school, whatever. And so that's what we do.
That's incredible. I didn't realize y'all had such a broad reach. I may have to get you to come I do have groups nationwide, and so I may have to get you to come to some of those other ones too. So tell us a little bit about what an umbrella program in Tennessee looks like. Like, what does that mean? What exactly are the laws and stipulations around it? Because I know it's kind of confusing.
So yes, and a fabulous resource that we send parents to all the time is HSLDA. So just hslda.com or org or whatever it is. They will let you know exactly in your particular state, but certainly in the state of Tennessee, what the legal requirements are for homeschooling. So basically, when you want to homeschool in Tennessee, you have a couple of options. You can do homeschool through what's called a private or umbrella or cover school. That's what we are. And so you do all your schoolwork at home. You can even choose your own curriculum or options, tutors, things like that. And then you register with us as your private school. Or you can register with your Board of Education in your county. They will not, though, provide a transcript or a diploma. That'll be all up to the parent to completely do all of that. So
Okay, and so y'all are considered a private institution. So tell me what that looks like as far as Tennessee state testing goes. Do y'all have to take care, do y'all have to participate in those? Do the students have to participate in those?
Okay, so that varies from school to school. So there are a number. Homelife Academy is not the only cover school or umbrella school. So depending on the cover school or private, umbrella school you go with, they determine whether or not your student will have to take standardized tests. And so with the Board of Education, the public school will require periodically for the homeschool student to take some standardized tests along the way. But Homelife Academy does not require standardized testing. We can facilitate some of that. We can certainly work with, like if your student is doing a standardized test and you want them and they're college bound, and certainly, we can help facilitate that. We can help with even accommodations for the ACT or SAT, things like that, like any normal high school counselor would. I can help walk through that process, or actually Karen Johnson does that fabulous job with that with our staff. But anyway, so it's not required. But we do encourage it for students, especially students that are college bound.
Okay, great. I'm not tech savvy.
All right, we're back. Yes.
Sorry about that, everyone. I am probably the worst with technology, and you'd think that as a millennial I'd learn how to do it, but I just can't figure it out sometimes.
Well, it is funny because the stereotypical homeschooler, is kind of seen as always in the home, maybe on a farm, completely anti-technology, but that is not reality.
No,
we are finding more and more that homeschool families are beginning to just become very technologically savvy as they go. They can do online classes even there at home, or they can do, they can travel. One of our families traveled in all 50 states as they homeschooled in their RV, traveling back and forth. But lots of possibilities.
Yeah, that's amazing. So Did you homeschool your own kids?
I did for most of the time that they were schooling, at least through middle school. And now my daughter has transferred into a private school, and my son has graduated. And so for part of his high school experience, he did, he was technically homeschooling, but he actually took college classes while he was still in high school. So he kind of did a dual enrollment situation instead.
And did you use Homelife as your umbrella for him, or what did y'all do for him?
We did. We used Homelife Academy and then did the dual enrollment thing through a community college and then a couple of online courses. So
Jennifer says that she loves the idea of traveling school. I think that's so much fun.
We have another family actually in Florida who they live on a boat. They go all over the Caribbean or the Bahamas or wherever, and they homeschool.
Wouldn't that be the life?
Yes.
To just school at the beach all the time?
I know, right?
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with school choice for your own children? Like,
sure.
Where are they now? How did it work out doing your own option? I guess choosing your own option for them.
Okay, so we were a very eclectic, over time.
Yeah.
My experience was public school, and I actually had a very positive experience growing up in a public school. And so I had my, preconceived ideas about what school ought to look like. Yeah. Well, when my son, who was entering kindergarten, kind of young, it seemed he was already kind of reading, and he had already met a couple of the milestones, beyond what he was supposed to be at. So I thought, oh no, he's going to be, 8 hours a day. He's going to be so bored. And so I thought, okay, so just for kindergarten, maybe we'll just try something at home. And we had a couple of friends who were homeschooling. That's the beautiful thing about homeschooling in West Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much support.
Oh, yeah.
When I was growing up, I knew one other family that homeschooled, and I thought they were kind of weird because that was the stereotype.
Right.
Now we're totally different, stepping outside of that box. But my son, I just felt like we could do kindergarten, and we would, and then maybe he would be a little more focused. He has ADHD, so he was going to be one of the kids in the class that was either all over the place because he already knew what. He already knew how to read,
right,
or he was going to be overlooked.
Sure.
So we started off homeschooling. We actually used K12.com is a great curriculum provider and very similar to what public schools are doing. And so I thought, okay, we'll just ease into that and use that. Loved it, fell in love with it, and so we did that for a little while, and then decided, so we'll go ahead and put him in public school, or we'll look into private school options too. There are a lot of those options in West Tennessee as well. So we were open, but it was working so well for us at the time. We were like, okay, well maybe first grade too. We'll just go ahead and do that too. And then my daughter, as she got to the age where she was ready for kindergarten, she was already listening to what her older brother was learning, and we were kind of incorporated, so we were calling that preschool, for her. But then we began to discover pretty early on that she had some struggles with reading. So she really had dyslexia. Mm-hmm. We never actually got a diagnosis for her.
Sure.
But it was obvious. Yeah. It was so obvious. So I thought, okay, well, we probably need to just go ahead and homeschool through kindergarten, first grade, to make sure she's really getting it, the reading skills and whatnot. Absolutely. And so basically fast forward to the time where we're there in second and fourth grade, and we're still kind of just doing our own thing at home. And by this time I had incorporated some other ideas into the mix, not just online courses, but just some things, some games and some just traditional textbooks and some workbooks. And of course we visited a library all the time.
Right.
And I just found that they were learning at such a rate, that I thought, okay, I just don't want to mess up what we've got going here. And so, but my honestly, and this is something that homeschoolers have to face many times, especially in areas where there's not a lot of support, they were starting to want the normal school experience, and they see the school bus and they see, their other friends. And so what we began to find was that it was a real help to be a part of a homeschool support group and field trips and play groups. So we started doing that, and that just was so much fun. And by 5th and 6th grade, my kids were like, "No, I don't want to stop. Let's do this. Let's keep doing this." So finding the resources was a key part of our experience in elementary school. And then, like I said, going into middle school, we did get a little more structured. We started in investigating some tutorials where a homeschool student can actually go to a location and take a class from a teacher.
Yeah.
Because even in homeschool world, we find we cannot do it all.
Oh, yeah.
And so especially for high school and anticipating that, we began to kind of branch out and look into those things.
Well, one of my questions for you, which you kind of just hit on, so it's a perfect segue, was what did you do when your kids started asking you about wanting to go to brick and mortar school and like wanting to go to real school? I know when I was homeschooling, like I definitely said those things. Like I was like, I want the friends, I want the social outings, I want the dances, I want, you know, all of those things. So what did you do when when your kids asked you about that?
So, well, they had friends in our neighborhood who go, you know, to the local public school. And so they were pretty well acquainted with the ins and outs of what their experience was. Okay. And by and large, we began to hear feedback from the kids in the neighborhood that, oh, no, you don't want to come to my school. You know, and there are some amazing public school teachers, even at this school they're talking about. But, you know, it's kind of the grass is greener sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And so the students who were coming home were saying, no, I want to homeschool like you are, you know. And so, but that said, my daughter felt very strongly that she wanted to go to a traditional school, at least for high school. And so we just went on a couple of tours. You know, we went to a public school, we went to a private school. We talked to teachers and other parents to find out about that process and how to transition from homeschool into a brick and mortar sort of setting. And they're open to that. Schools are very open to you touring and asking questions. And so we did that, and we were very pleasantly surprised with several of the different options. Yeah. So it is not impossible to go back and forth. What I do caution parents, this is just the reality, is that technology.
No, that's my ringtone too, so I was like, oh my goodness.
So the reality of the situation is, for high school, I would say, choose one and stick with it.
All 4 years?
All 4 years. Colleges kind of expect to see that. Certainly public schools, you know, or private schools are hesitant to transfer a student into what, you know, their new program because you haven't had the right classes, you know, that all the other kids have had, or they're going to have to end up validating your high school credits, and you may find that you have to take a test and prove, you know, either like that you are supposed to be in an honors class, or you're not quite ready for their honors class, or whatever. But so there are some hoops to jump through for students who are trying to go back and forth between the different schools.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Vicky asks, how do you get your child to read? It's really hard for me to get mine to read.
So what grade? It depends on the grade. Okay. So struggling, especially students with dyslexia or ADHD, like both of my kids had, sometimes just engaging their imagination is key. Sometimes, so in the younger years and even through middle school, we were big on read alouds. We would just spend time, you know, and even my husband would get involved because he's a public speaker. He has a great voice, and we would just read, and almost, you know, and always a benefit of reading, especially a popular novel or something, is you can watch the video afterwards, and then you know, the DVD or whatever, go to the movie. Capturing their imagination is key, and then they're asking for more. They want to see what you're doing. They want to learn. But then finding the right curriculum a lot of times, especially for those struggling learners. If, like my daughter just needed to scale way back and really spend time learning the letters, learning the sounds, we would trick her, you know, we call it motivation, incentive, you know, but if you'll just read this one line or this one paragraph or whatever, then you'll get a treat, or we'll do this, and certainly when we entered the world of chapter books, you know, if you finish that chapter, then, you know, you can invite a friend over, whatever, just to help make it fun, you know, and engaging, and not feel like it's a chore or an impossibility. But that again, and in psychologists in learning, we have a psychology major on our staff as a high school counselor, and she's reminding us all the time that a student's brain just develops at a different pace.
Absolutely.
And many times in a structured classroom environment, you know, you have to teach to the whole, you know, the average. But in homeschool world, you really can wait until you begin to see your student turn those corners.
Which is I think, a huge blessing.
Yes.
Vicky said her students are in 2nd and 5th, so really it would be, like you said, triggering their imagination and getting them involved that way.
Yes, if a student is really into science, go ahead and focus on what they like. Let them pick. Let them kind of lead the way in what they enjoy. So they'll spend. And my daughter, this is just a funny story, but reality is sometimes it's just finding what motivates.
Yeah.
Not necessarily just relying on, like we did a couple of times with little, sugary snack treats, but to try to figure out. So even as young, a 5-6-year-old, when she's just not even all in with the letters of the alphabet, because here's her reasoning. I finally realized she doesn't know someone. She doesn't have a friend whose letter of the alphabet her name does not. She doesn't know anybody who starts with the letter X or the letter Q, and so those letters just don't factor into her world. So as long and then why bother if a J and a G sound can make the same sounds? Why not just pick one and use that?
Sure.
And so we had to be creative. You may not know anybody whose name starts with Q, but Queen starts with Q. Isn't that a fun word?
Right.
And so we had to kind of just think what's relevant to her, in her world. And so she finally came around and realized all the letters of the alphabet are important.
Yeah.
And what sound they make.
They all have equal importance.
Yes.
I've lost the comments and questions. So tell me a little bit about when you first decided, okay, we're going to homeschool, we're just going to try this out. Did you get any grief or backlash or anything like that from people you knew? Does that make any sense?
Sure,
okay.
Sure. Well, we did once. We heard the question that homeschool families just roll their eyes and laugh about, what about, and they try to be so casual about it, but the socialization.
Yes.
What about, because they imagine that you're always at home, you're always, in your living room, or you've created a classroom, back on the back 40 in your farm or whatever, and they don't realize that we still get out a lot. Some years we've actually had to just say no to some of the fun things in order to get some of the more rigorous, academics done. But in general, I didn't catch a lot of flack because we knew so many families that were homeschooling, and because I grew up in a particular area where, similar to West Tennessee, we live with the reality that some of our schools are really struggling.
Yeah.
And so, in general, we see homeschooling as a really positive option, especially because I had always been a really good student. I had a college degree. I felt very confident that at the least I could teach my children to read and do math.
Right.
and then we'll see, how it goes. But when people would ask, I would generally just say, well, casually, let's just spend some time with my kids. And they spoke for themselves, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, they communicate well. They are still, honestly, even as high school and college students, they're still actually interested in learning, and they can clearly communicate themselves.
Yeah.
What they liked about homeschooling, what they didn't like,
That's amazing.
the pros and the cons.
Yeah.
But even as young kids, they could clearly communicate, that they did know how to stand in line, raise their hand. We didn't require that you raise your hand to ask a question in our home, but they know how to do that. They learned how to do that in other settings. And so they had plenty of friends, and they could engage with adults. They just did well at representing themselves. So I didn't have to face that question a lot.
That's amazing. And as far as a typical school day back when, and you still have one in high school, is that correct?
I do, but she's in a private school now, so she's not doing homeschool work right now.
Okay. Mm-hmm. When you did have them at home, how many hours did you typically spend on school a day?
Oh, okay. So that's a good question, because the legal requirement typically is about 4 hours a day.
Okay.
Now that is not necessarily sitting at a desk, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Because even in a classroom situation, hopefully a really good teacher is going to incorporate some physical, and some field trips and some different things like that. But so our goal, especially in the elementary years, was 4 hours of schoolwork. But that usually became more like 6 hours because really, once you get really involved in a particular topic, or you're doing a science experiment, or you're learning about flowers and trees and frogs outside, you start having fun with it, and it and then of course we even would do some school on Saturday or Sunday because it doesn't really feel like school on Saturday or Sunday. If you're going to an art museum, or if you're just writing a creative story, it's school. And so we had some fun with that. Yes. And for high schoolers especially, when for those college-bound students especially, we do encourage you to, make a real effort to get through the whole book. Public schools, private schools, they don't always get through the whole textbook. We do encourage homeschool families to make it through the whole textbook because we've got that kind of freedom and flexibility in our day.
Absolutely.
But again, some students find they can do that very quickly. And so, then they do have a good bit of time for the field trips and the other fun stuff.
Which is another huge bonus to homeschooling.
That is not to say we never have those days where it's just like pulling teeth, because, okay, let's say it's snow day, I go ahead and give a snow day. But other homeschool families are like, no, we could get so much done, so if play group is canceled, you're like, oh, let's do some math. So, but that is not to say we did have some days where we would have to figure out again, even in the middle school years, some days you just think, okay, can we just get some stuff done here? And you do have to sometimes be creative about that. And so sometimes, especially with my daughter, who's a very people-oriented person, that involved other people coming into the picture. So we would maybe have 2 or 3 other of our friends who were also homeschooling come in and work alongside with. So, for instance, in 8th grade, editing essays was a big barrier for my daughter. She wasn't a fan, especially of mom editing her papers because she's the creative one. Every word matters. She's really struggled to accomplish this reading and this writing thing, and so she didn't want me changing anything. But if I brought in a couple of her friends and they did a peer edit type thing, oh my goodness, then it was all about you did such a good job, I love that idea, but what if you said it this way, and it was a collaborative thing, and it went much better. So incorporating some other families and other kids was sometimes a help when we would hit those walls.
Jennifer says that Netflix is for those snow days.
Absolutely. Netflix can even be incorporated into a normal school day. They've got some fabulous, books that have been turned into movies. They've got documentaries, biographies. It's a great resource.
That's what I've heard. And especially, it wasn't around when, it was, but in a different fashion when I was a kid. So we didn't have all those Right.
Thinking back. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. Vicki, again, has another question and wants to know, what if you don't know anyone around you doing homeschooling? They're with K-12, and so far K-12 provides field trips. So I guess another question alongside that is, what's your favorite homeschool resource that nobody really knows about? Besides homeschool, people know about Homelife, but besides Homelife, what's your favorite homeschool resource?
So distinguishing K-12, we did K-12 for a little while, and then, of course, the Tennessee Virtual Academy uses K-12 curriculum, but they are kind of their standalone public school option, and they try to facilitate, their families.
Yes.
But many times it is a matter of doing some homework. There are some fabulous resources on Facebook. If you just look for some homeschool support groups on Facebook, you can be part of their community. Sometimes you can meet families that way. There are lots of online class options where your student can maybe be a part of. But if you're doing K-12 already, you're already doing online. So I would say you want some actual physical people in your life. And so if you don't have any neighbors or a church with some homeschooling families going on, then Facebook is a good option. And then maybe you can find some that you didn't even know about in your area. And many times that is a challenge, especially in rural areas. So sometimes it takes, and honestly, you can call Homelife Academy, especially elementary students can talk to Phyllis. she's a fabulous counselor. She or one of the people on staff in the office can sometimes help. If they know exactly where you're talking about, where you live, they can help you pinpoint you with another family potentially. But it just kind of depends on where you are. So that is a tough one for those families, though. And yet we've seen some success. So homeschooling support groups for those families that are now not part of the Tennessee Virtual Academy, because they really do try to do their thing, and they do it pretty well. But for homeschoolers who are just doing, an umbrella school, there are some support groups like the Memphis Home Education Association, both in either Jackson, Tennessee, Memphis, Knoxville, all the different areas. There are support groups who try to facilitate maybe in like a spelling bee or a science fair, or they may have sports available, which is a great option. And some public schools will even allow homeschool students to play sports with a family, or private schools sometimes will allow your student to participate in archery or something like that you can't just easily find, in your area. So sometimes it's a matter of knowing who to ask.
Okay. When you were navigating that world, where did you look to find those support groups and things like that?
So when we were homeschooling in the 2000s, I guess, the Memphis Home Education Association was fabulous. And they had, 10 to 12 mini support groups as a part of that umbrella group. So there was a Bartlett Wolf Chase support group, which was fabulous, and where there were smaller support groups if you just wanted a small number of students or whatever. So those were a wonderful go-to. Nowadays, even just in Shelby County, there are 10 to 12 what are called tutorial or co-ops. And so families can take an art class on campus, on a what may be a church, or it may be a library where they actually facilitate the class, and it may be once or twice a week. But homeschool students can sign up for those extracurricular or some core classes in elementary, middle, or high school. And so many times it's a matter of just go online and do a Google search for co-ops, homeschool co-ops, or homeschool tutorials in your area. And they should pop up pretty easily. Or again, you can call Homelife Academy and just, ask, okay, so Mona was talking about, and that's fine too. We can steer you in the right direction. So
MHEA, they're saying, is great. My brothers actually played baseball for them.
Baseball, basketball, swimming. Several of their athletes get full scholarships to different, and Homelife Academy has a counselor on staff who specifically helps with those students who are trying for NCAA or NAIA scholarships for college. So
tell us a little bit. So this is, for those who are just joining, is Mona from Homelife Academy. So tell us a little bit more about, let's talk a little bit more about Homelife. So do y'all give curriculum suggestions? Do you have curriculum? When a parent's trying to pick their curriculum for their student, do y'all play a role in that at all?
We can, yes. Some parents come to us, they already know what they're doing, or they've signed up with a tutorial that's already kind of given them the instruction. So that's fine. That's totally fine. We do leave it up to the parent to decide what they're going to use for their student. On our website, on the homelifeacademy.com website, we have a whole list of curriculum options that you can explore, from the very basic to more honors level or whatever. We try to help facilitate, especially those students who, have some struggles. We try to help figure out, is this more of a learning issue with, it just needs to be more visual, or is this more of an auditory learner? Is this your kinesthetic, super active? We can help kind of steer. A fabulous resource is Kathy Duffy's. Kathy Duffy is an author. She has a book she puts out every year, 101, homeschool curriculum options. It's at the library. You can order it on Amazon, and she's got a website, so you can just look up what she recommends as her top 100 picks or whatever. So yes, Homelife on our website, we have some curriculum options, or we also have, for those students who want to do an online course through Homelife Academy, we have what's called Archway, and they can do. There's like 100 different courses you can pick from, and you can do it at different levels. You can either just do the online course yourself with kind of mom or dad as a coach.
That's amazing.
Or you can pay extra to have an actual teacher that you would submit your students' assignments to.
Okay.
And so those are done a little bit, standalone. So the parent, is basically signing up the student for those particular courses.
And so let's talk a little bit about cost. So do y'all have a admission fee or a yearly fee, and then would be an added cost then for like Homelife Archway?
Yes,
correct? And
that's in general how any of your curriculum is going to work. At Homelife Academy, we generally charge, most families pay about $100 to be part of the cover school, maybe $120.
And is that per year or per month?
Per year, just per year.
Okay.
Just to have the legal covering for being part of a private school in Tennessee, and getting all of your paperwork, your documents, your transcript, and all of that. So that's about, I just generally tell people plan to pay $100 to $120 a year. Then the rest of your money can go into investing in whatever curriculum or a tutorial or online classes that you want. So there's a different scale for, it varies widely. Some tutorials may charge $2,000, but they have this fabulous, extension program, and they have a bunch of stuff for field trips, and they do it all. It's kind of a do-it-all, which is still significantly cheaper than a typical brick and mortar private school option. So a lot of parents are going that direction.
Absolutely. And is that $100 per student, or is it per family? Do y'all have a difference?
Okay, so I think it's on, if you just go on the Homelife Academy website, it breaks it down for you.
Okay.
So in general, I don't usually deal with incoming admissions, but it's in general, it's a set fee for a family, $60 to $80 to join, and then $50 for a high school student, $25 for a middle school or elementary student, with a cap. There is a cap. If you have big family, you're not going to pay more than $225 max for the whole year, and then you're good. So
and so the enrollment process, is it just you put in your application, you just sign up online? Is it?
Yes,
it's super simple.
It is super simple. So for most students, they just can. The family can go in, sign in, as long as the parent. Now, the legal requirement, I believe, in Tennessee is for the parent to have a high school diploma or GED. You don't have to have a college degree, but you do have to have that. And so you answer the questions. You can even pay online, and then you'll hear back from Homelife Academy as to whether or not you're accepted. There's not usually a waiting list or anything like that. It's just of the process we have to go through. We request records from the previous school. For high school students, they will have to fill out a supplementary application just to get a feel for what your record is, because honestly, in today's world, there are so many reasons for homeschooling. If you've had a bullying situation, or if you've had some other issues, disciplinary issues or whatnot, we like to go into that a little bit deeper, but still, it's just the matter of filling out the supplemental application, and then a counselor will call back.
That's amazing. And for those high school students, do y'all do any college readiness or help them out with college applications, ACT prep, or taking the ACT for that matter? What do y'all do to help your 9th through 10th? Or 9th through 12th graders?
They're all graduating so early these days. No, so yes, for the high school students, we have a staff of about 10 to 12. Some part-time, some full-time full high school counselors with varying different, expertise. And so we have a counselor that helps specifically with ACT accommodations for those students that have a diagnosis on file or an IEP from previous school. We have a couple of counselors who specialize, like I said, Lonnie specializes in those students who have maybe they're a national merit finalist, or they've got super high ACT scores and get the General Assembly Merit Scholarship on top of the Hope Lottery scholarship. She can help with that. She also helps with military academies, as well as, like I said before, the NCAA sports scholarships. And then we've got 9th, 10th, 11th grade counselors who can help with any number of different things, recommendation letters for governor's school or, so so, and we've got lots of information. Actually, you don't even have to be part of Homelife Academy to just access the information on our website.
Yeah.
We just like to say, it's all out there, and we try to make it as easy as possible to find. Even if you're not homeschooling, you can benefit from some of the high school pages, on our website, trying to just figure out, the college pathway or the 2-year college pathway, which is very popular in Tennessee because of the Tennessee Promise scholarship for those free 2 years. And so navigating the 4 years of high school, is my student more likely to be competing for those really academically rigorous scholarships, or are we going a sports route, or both, or are we going more into the fine arts, trying to get into Juilliard, or we're just scaling back. We just want to do, technical path. We want to do it debt-free, and so our counselors can help navigate that and decide what courses you really ought to be taking to help make sure your student goals are accomplished over the 4 years.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. Let me